to bring every single one of these hostages to safety. During our visit, we also experience in flashes what the Israelis experience on a daily basis. We were having lunch at our hotel when the sirens went off, meaning rockets were only 7 to 9 minutes away, rockets fired by Hamas. We all rushed into a shelter and waited with bated breath until they told us the coast was clear. It happened again in the evening, moments before a press conference that had to be delayed that we held on Sunday. For us,
he said he just got word that his company said they're no longer going to pay for health insurance. Don't know what they're going to do. Well, you know, for all of you out there who, and there's so many people who still are in that circumstance, and we'll talk about being deprived of your dignity. Not being able to take care of your family if you don't have health insurance is I think, one of the most consequential things that can happen to a person. And so, you know, for all of you out there
this year in budget process to over the parts of the federal budget, reducing overall government spending. But as recently as late last year, the White House has asked Congress for an additional $10 billion in crisis funds. The money never came through, and now the administration has agreed to give $27 billion back, including a significant portion of what remained in the fund for emergency preparedness and response. States are in the process of allocating money towards new programs. A guaranteed income program in Wisconsin issued its latest payment worth $500. The payments are put forward every single month, and a lot of people receive them and receive the money they need. And the program as a whole will be the last one for one more year. This first payment was issued in September, and the final payment will be sent in August. But even a household of two, for example, can make more than $36,000 and get the payments every single month. Now, some governors are backing a one-time tax rebate to put as much as $800 in the pockets of the American people. And the governor told reporters a paycheck does not go as far as it did 2 years ago, and I'm working to give nearly $1 billion back to the hands of hard-working, tax-paying Alabama residents. But applications for new guaranteed income programs in Massachusetts, for example, opened, with selected participants receiving monthly payments of up to $500. So folks, it's great to see that Joe Biden is actually doing something to help the American people, which since mid-2022, politicians have warned Americans and a growing number of tax people to be exact about this. And the IRS has said that it wants to hire new employees using funds from the $80 billion allocated to the Inflation Reduction Act. But according to several experts, the IRS does not plan to use all of that funding for hiring purposes alone. As the New York Times pointed out, the IRS total number of full-time employees is 20% fewer than what the agency had in 2010. Even though the population has grown, to bolster its numbers, the agency plans to hire using a lot of money, with roughly $7,200 of those being hiring enforcement staff. This would add to the 5,000 phone personnel the agency hired before the 2023 tax season began. Increased funding to the agency would help it more experienced auditors who can handle complicated tax filings. It could help the agency close the annual gap between what is owed and what is collected. The agency has said that it wants to help taxpayers get the deductions and tax credits they deserve. Right now, the focus is on providing eligible and educational materials that break down deductions in plain language. So hopefully people can get their stimulus cash. Folks, we have a lot of news about the fourth stimulus check, Social Security benefits, SSI, and SDI. Continue watching this video because you don't want to miss out on this. For the vast majority of Social Security beneficiaries, their monthly check is vital to their financial well-being. After 20 years of annual polling, it is found that no less than 80% of retirees rely on their Social Security benefit in some capacity to meet their monthly expenses. But with the U.S. debt limit and ceiling deadline looming, more than 66 million beneficiaries are wondering whether the Social Security checks will be on the chopping block. The debt ceiling represents the authorized borrowing limit for the federal government. It's important to keep in mind that it doesn't include borrowing for new spending or projects. Rather, it's to cover the federal debt limit and existing financial obligations. At no point in America's history has the federal government defaulted on its legal financial obligations, which is why the current debt limit impasse between Democrats and Republicans on Capitol Hill was turning heads. The expectation prior to this week is that Treasury lawmakers had perhaps 2 or 3 months. In that time, there were significant decreases in child poverty and food scarcity. Government data showed upticks in spending on necessities like clothing, utilities, and much more. Republicans in Congress and Joe Manchin have let it expire, everybody. According to Republicans, this year the credit reverts to its pre-2021 structure, a non-refundable credit worth of $2,000 per child, ages 16 and under, that is. The Guardians received that when they file a tax return next year, but the expanded child tax credit payments have been paused, even though they help many families stay afloat as inflation skyrocketed. Reports have found
Also focus on providing resources for military spouses or entrepreneurs, like some of the folks up here on the stage will be here in a moment. That includes exploring new funding options like grants and loans to help military spouses start and sustain their businesses, and developing new resources that are going to make it easier for entrepreneurs to relocate their businesses if they have to PCS. Folks, let me close with this. Next month, we'll celebrate 50 years of the all-volunteer force. At the time, there was some debate about whether or not we could draw in the talent we needed, about whether Americans would answer the call to serve. But 50 years on, we see so clearly all of you who raised your hand, all of you who volunteered, are the reason that our military today is the greatest fighting force in the history of the world, bar none. That's the reason. And the reason we've been able to sustain that force year after year, decade after decade, is because military spouses, caregivers, and survivors have answered the call as well. You have your loved ones' backs, just like they have the country's back. So the only way to keep this force strong for the next 50 after that, is keep our promise. We uphold the sacred obligation we bear to our military members, our veterans, our spouses, caregivers, and survivors. Today, I'm here as Commander-in-Chief to sign this executive order because it matters. It matters to our military recruitment and retention. It matters to our troops' readiness and resilience.
Is really experiencing a backlog of claims. We talked about this last night, which I know really got worsened during the COVID-19 pandemic. And then, of course, with the passage of the PACT Act last year, the number of benefits, veterans seeking benefits is only going to rise. So I wanted to ask you, if confirmed, what are you going to do to make sure that veterans are receiving timely responses to their claims?
Senator Murray, thank you very much for that question. When I was...
I'm so glad you're here today. You have a doctorate in chemical engineering. It's my understanding that most natural gas pipelines, and we talked about them, are not equipped to ship blends of methane and hydrogen where the hydrogen component is greater than 20%. Could you please explain to all of us how a conventional natural gas pipeline differs from a pipeline which is capable of shipping blends with more than 20% hydrogen?
Sure. Thank you for the question, Senator Barrasso. So hydrogen, being such a small molecule and corrosive, can create cracks and attack imperfections.
Are stimulus checks going to be sent out immediately? I know many of you are wondering what's the status for fourth round of stimulus payments. Well, new information has just been released, everybody. I know many of you are hoping for another round of enhanced child tax credit law this year passed by congressional lawmakers. However, you might live in one of the many states making plans to send more money to families between this year and 2023. The last monthly child tax credit payment was disbursed in December, with the final check arriving after parents filed their tax returns this year. There is a Republican Senate proposal that would send up to $350 per child and includes a work requirement. The proposal from Mitt Romney will restart monthly payments for millions of people.